Alright guys, welcome back to the JellyBeanSniper.net NFL podcast. I missed last week's show. There was a very good reason for it. Me and Eric were supposed to co-op this again, and there was a failure in communication. Mostly, actually, entirely on my part. He was planning on doing it earlier in the day, but I sleep during the day because I work the overnight shift, and needless to say, I slept through when he asked me when we were going to do it. So, didn't happen last week. This week I'm flying solo. I think he's mad at me, so he's not here this time. Maybe I'll try and get a hold of him for next week, but the playoffs have been interesting so far, though. But before we get into that, and I know I'm not going to go back and recap every single playoff game, but I first want to talk about, because literally today, it's been a slow-moving head coach fill. None of the coaches have been hired up until the last 3 days. The first one, of course, which I'm excited about, as you can tell by looking at my avatar there, is Rex Ryan was hired as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. I was not, when Doug Marrone first left, I thought Rex would actually be a terrible candidate because he was a defensive-minded coach, the Bills already had a solid defense, and just the scheme that we ran with, we were running a successful 4-3 defense, and Rex likes the 3-4, and I didn't think it would work. What I forgot was that the year before, under Mike Pettin, it was the Rex Ryan defense, and the Bills were actually better than we were this year. So, I think that'll be fine. And it actually makes sense from a personnel standpoint, because Jerry Hughes is a free agent. He's gonna get a big contract, and when Mike Pettin had him, he was basically running as a part-time player, a situational pass rusher, and that'd be a lot of money to invest in him. Better just to let him walk. The Bills have a lot of linebacking depth now, with the emergence of Preston Brown and Kiko Alonso coming back, Nigel Bradham's taking a step up, and Brandon Spikes they could probably get for cheap. So there wouldn't, maybe he even adds another pass rushing linebacker, but it's a lot easier with his defense. And Stephon Gilmore has been sitting on the cusp of potential for 3 years now. Rex is very good with cornerbacks. Rex could finally get him over the hump and actually into that elite category. Either that or they go out and sign Darrelle Revis. That's not out of the realm of possibility. And as far as the offense, because everyone keeps saying, they need an offensive-minded coach. Well, that's what Doug Marrone was, and the offense was terrible. He was an offensive line coach, and the offensive line became one of the worst in the league. So he didn't do a very good job at that. They brought in Greg Roman to be the offensive coordinator from San Francisco. And that's a really good hire for what this roster is constructed with. Obviously, I still think the Bills need to focus more on constructing the offensive line than anything else. E.J. Manuel, this is an offense that should be a little easier for him to run if they do go with him. They need to get him... They basically need to let him... They need to force him to throw the ball deep, though. That was his biggest problem, was a lot of checkdowns. So maybe the zone read would help him some. I'm not sure if E.J. Manuel is a salvageable project, but if anyone can do it, they made Colin Kaepernick a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and turns out he's not really that great. Then we also had the Jets hired Todd Bowles, which I think is an excellent signing. That is great for them. I'm not going to get into the GMs. I don't really care. I don't know enough about the guy who they hired. But I think Todd Bowles is a great hire for them. It's sort of, everyone keeps talking about Quinn out of Seattle, but Pete Carroll's a defensive-minded coach. You're not always going to get a very good head coach out of the coordinator who does what the head coach already does well. Who was the, Romeo Crennel wasn't exactly the most successful coach of all time. Well, maybe you shouldn't hire Bill Belichick's defensive coordinator. Mike Pettin was Rex Ryan's defensive coordinator. He worked out okay, but that's only one season. We'll reevaluate that later on. But Todd Bowles, that Arizona defense, that was him. Bruce Arians is an offensive-minded coach. He made that defense, so I think he'll be fine. The only problem is you're talking about bringing in Chan Gailey as the offensive coordinator. I had my run-in with him in Buffalo. I'm not going to say he's a bad coach, but he was the one in charge when they decided to give Ryan Fitzpatrick a boatload of money for 3 games. Played well for 3 games. Let's give him a ton of money, and then he crashed and burned. So, Yeah, you might have some more struggles on the offense for a while there, Jets, but your defense will remain solid. The 49ers promoted Tom Sula, which was, I believe he was their defensive line coach. It is sort of weird that they're keeping, they're hiring from within. But, it's, they want to do what they want to do. He got along. He's been there before Harbaugh, so obviously he's doing something right. They felt like giving him a chance. Let him take it, give him a chance. Their defense is solid. Might as well keep that side of the ball strong, and then hopefully he brings in a good offensive coordinator to do something with Kaepernick. I'm really shocked that that Mike Shanahan didn't get any job so far. I mean, there's still openings out there. Not so shocked that Doug Marrone still hasn't gotten a head coaching job. And again, there's still a couple openings. There's still Chicago. We'll get one more coaching change happen, but we'll get to that in a second. I really feel like, Marrone, by ditching the Bills like that, and I'm not going to get petty about this. He had a lot of issues with the front office and probably wasn't a huge fan of the Pagulas taking over, and he wanted to get out. He had the option, he could. That's fine, but a lot of teams don't look at it that way. A lot of players don't look at it that way, including the players on the Bills. So, he took that option. He might have been better off just going 5-11 next year and getting fired. So who's Chicago? There were 7, right? Atlanta. Chicago and Atlanta are the 2 without a head coach. So there's still options for those guys. But my favorite hire out of all of these, and I really liked, there's nothing that I've really questioned. I don't know Tom Sula that well. I don't really question anyone else. My favorite hire so far has been Jack Del Rio in Oakland. I think that's a great hire. Jack Del Rio was a really good head coach in Jacksonville. Anyone who hasn't really been paying attention for longer than 3 years, Jacksonville used to be consistently really good. Back when Maurice Jones-Drew was a stud, one of the best running backs in the league, that defense played really well. It played so well that it got Mike Smith the head coaching job. But Jack Del Rio was a very good head coach. They were like 14-2 once or twice and consistently competing for the playoffs. And he got fired. The team falls off. It's just what happens. Same thing that happened at... Oh, that's right. There's another opening. We'll get to that one when we recap the other games. But Jack Del Rio, he was a good coach for a little while. And then, the team sort of fell off. You move another direction. It happens. Andy Reid got fired. A lot of guys get fired. That's just what happens. Mike Ditka got fired. Chicago loves him. Ditka got fired because that team, they dropped down to 5-11. So he was out. So, Jack Del Rio got canned. It happens, but I am surprised it took this long for him to get another coaching gig. I'm surprised he didn't get hired right off the bat. And he did a really good job in Denver as their defensive coordinator, and I'm glad that he got another head coaching spot. And everyone wants to talk about his leather jacket and this and that. That fits in perfect in Oakland. For the Raiders, that's perfect. Throw in the fact that his parents are season ticket holders, that's a really good signing. They've got some great defensive players. And if he can get the rumor, I don't know if this is a rumor. I think just a lot of writers like to pick who they would hire as offensive coordinator. This is the 3rd different team I've heard them say Mark Trestman for. Because they were talking about him going with Rex. He wouldn't have fit. There's not a quarterback for him to work with what he wants. But Mark Trestman would be great in Oakland working with Derek Carr. I think he could really bring him along. Jack Del Rio would solidify that defense. There's a lot more pieces on that defense. And I think Oakland fans, I know you're out there, you might only go 5-11 next year, but just remember that that's a 2-game improvement. Be patient. Give these guys 3 years. I think they can turn it around. I think you guys can finally get back to being a competitive team, maybe in the playoffs, because you got to think about it. 3 years from now, Peyton's not going to be around. He might not be around next year, but that's besides the point. 3 years from now, I would be shocked if he's around. And Phillip Rivers might not be around. And the Chiefs aren't exactly setting the world on fire. So 3 years from now, if you guys could just be patient, you could take over that division. Because you've got the young stud quarterback. The other teams don't have that. Not unless you really believe in Brock Osweiler. I'm not saying he's going to bust or not, but no one's seen him yet. But that's my thought on just the head coaching hirings. I really think it's been nothing. I haven't scratched my head at any of them yet. So whoever's waiting out for Dan Quinn, which I'm assuming would be Atlanta at this point, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be bad, but I don't know that he's worth the wait. I think Atlanta really screwed up. I think that's my head scratcher is why didn't you go after Rex? Because I was saying all along, I thought Rex was perfect for Atlanta. He could turn around that defense. He didn't need all the pieces he has in Buffalo. He could have turned around with a lot less. He brings guys with him. Players are loyal to him. He could go to Atlanta. Darrelle Revis is going to come and see you. Maybe. You're going to get other, like, the role players. Calvin Pace probably gets released from the Jets. He'd go and be a situational pass rusher for Atlanta. You know, you'll get these guys to follow. That's what happened when he went to the Jets, Bart Scott. He had a bunch of guys follow him from the Ravens. So that defense wouldn't have been a problem, and the offense was set. So they really... Atlanta screwed up by not hiring Rex Ryan. I think he would have been perfect for them. But that's what happens. I think the owner... I think Arthur Blank likes being bigger than the coach. I think Rex had too much personality for them. Maybe that's what it is. I'm totally talking out of my ass right now, by the way. So don't run and try to make headlines with this. But maybe Arthur Blank didn't want to hire someone with a big personality like Rex did. I'm not really sure. But Rex is a good football coach. You can question his game managing skills, but as far as getting players to be loyal to him, as far as getting them to execute, he's great. He just might not know when to throw a challenge flag or when to call a timeout. But that's besides the point. I'll be 100% honest. Over the last 18 years, the Bills haven't had a coach who can do that either. The most successful coach the Bills have had since Marv Levy retired was Wade Phillips, and he decided it was a good idea to freaking bench Doug Flutie for Rob Johnson. So we have a history of not having very good coaches. And the two that have been really successful since Wade Phillips both quit after 9 and 7 seasons. So Rex, don't leave us now, man. But let's get into the actual playoffs now. I'm sitting in a nice and even 4-4 on the postseason picks, which 500 for me in the playoffs is good. I usually am under 5. I'm usually like 2-6 by now, so I have the chance to at least go. I can go over 500 now, so that's a plus. But last week we had some pretty important, pretty interesting matchups. The first game that started us off, if I could just pull... I'm trying to do this in order. I know what games were played. Okay, so last week, the first game was actually probably the best game. Well, it's arguable. There were two really good games. New England 35, Baltimore 31. So, yes, you can all breathe a sigh of relief. My crusade on the Ravens, it's over. I can go back to treating them like a regular franchise next year. Hopefully. Everyone wants to complain. You know, the Ravens are all complaining about, oh, New England couldn't beat us straight up. They had to run trick plays and all this other stuff. No. You got out-coached. That's what happened. John Harbaugh is a very good head coach, but Bill Belichick is the best. And you got out-coached because Belichick knows more than you do. And that's fine. You know, Belichick knows a lot more than most head coaches will ever forget. I know that's a cliche, but it's 100% true. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that's what happened to you. But hey, it could have been a lot worse. You know, that Edelman pass, that was amazing. I finally figured out that there's NFL Now on the Apple TV, so I can actually watch the replays now. So I actually can talk about some of these. Yeah, that was an amazing play. I think I love the 4 offensive linemen and then a wide receiver lining up as an ineligible receiver. They did it a few times, though, and they want to talk about, oh, well, you know, they called it and then got to the line really quick and couldn't, you know. And I'm just like, what were Harbaugh's exact words? He said they called someone ineligible, but then Brady rushed them to the line and snapped the ball and they forgot who they were supposed to cover. Well, that sounds like that's your problem. That doesn't sound like that's on, you know, the NFL came out and said that was completely by the rules. That's your problem. Brady executed. They came up with a plan. They pulled it out of a bag of tricks. That's fine. And then they executed it better than anyone else could. This isn't the first team to do it. Alabama did this against LSU whenever they played this season. Thank you, Colin Cowherd, for that little tidbit, making me sound a little bit smarter. It's not the first time this has been done. But again, Nick Saban is a smart coach. Bill Belichick is a smart coach. They will do this kind of stuff because it's in the rules. Some of the rules are questioned in other playoff games, but it's within the realm of the rules, so it's perfectly legal. They didn't break any rules. They didn't do anything like that. There's no cheating here. It's the same thing. You're going to exploit any loophole you can. If I told you that the money you make right now working at whatever job you make, that there was a loophole where your company would still have to pay you as much as they do now, but you get to take the next 6 months off. Are you going to work the next 6 months? Or are you going to take the 6 months off and take the pay? It's perfectly legal for you to take the 6 months. There's no negative repercussions. Other than your boss might say, oh, well, he didn't have to do that. No one else took that, but that doesn't mean you can't. There's no, they can't fire you over it, nothing. You're going to take the 6 months off and not feel guilty about it. One guy is. A lot of them aren't, because they're going to be like, well, it's going to break an unwritten code. No, it's perfectly fine. What Belichick did was perfectly fine. He out-coached. End of story. And that's why they're advancing and the wife beaters are going back home. And I'm sorry, I'm perfectly fine. There are 52 players and a good head coach and good, front office with the exception of the owner, who I will still root for. Terrell Suggs is also a wife beater. That gets swept under the carpet, so screw that guy. But other than that, I am perfectly fine with the rest of the Ravens organization. I think Joe Flacco is underrated. I think he might not put up the numbers, but they win. They just win when he's at quarterback. He's gonna. I don't remember his playoff record off the top of my head, but he's got a solid playoff record. Like, it's not like Aaron Rodgers before this season. Outside of when they won the Super Bowl, the only quarterback he had beaten in the playoffs was Joe Webb. That's it. Aaron Rodgers has a better playoff record than you would think because he got it all in one season. It's not like Tom Brady started off 9-0 in his career for the playoffs. He went through a rough stretch there, but he's still, I think, 8. Now he's like 19-8 or something like that. It's still, take into account, that means 11 times he's made the postseason. He's got 3 rings, so he's doing something right. So Joe Flacco has been excellent in the postseason, and that's the most important thing. I would gladly take him on the Bills, and I think there are probably another 25 teams in the NFL who would take him over whatever they got. One of the teams that would not take him, though, is the Seattle Seahawks, who managed to win pretty comfortably 31-17 over Carolina. Carolina came to play. It was a close game for a little while, but they just got outmatched. Seattle and Carolina, they're very similar in what they do, but Seattle's better at it, and that's why they have a ring. Good for Carolina for putting up a fight. Cam Newton, I don't hate you anymore. I'm not going to call you Crybaby Cam anymore, unless you do something that warrants it, but I'm liking the fact that he got into a car accident, broke 2 bones in his back, and still came out, won a playoff game, even if it was against Ryan Lindley, won a playoff game, and gave Seattle a game. Actually, 2 out of the 8 quarterbacks who played this week or last weekend had 2 broken bones in their back. Somebody break EJ Manuel's back so we can make the playoffs for once. Jesus. Russell Wilson was on fire. They actually had a compilation of all of his highlights, and I just watched that. I didn't really feel the need to watch anything else from this game. I didn't hear of any other big plays, and it's unbelievable. There's a reason why he's one of my favorite players in the league. I mean, and I've been saying this since day one, and I've started liking him entirely based on the fact that he was undersized, ran around a lot, was a pretty good quarterback. Sounds a lot like the last good quarterback the Bills ever had, so I've been a fan of his for a while, and it's good to see, I have, and I'll get to this towards the end, I have a very, I know what I want to see in the Super Bowl, even if it is kind of a popular pick, but I have a good reason for wanting to see it. But next up, we move to a game that was a lot closer, but with some controversy, for a second week in a row for one team. Green Bay wins 26-21 over Dallas. Everybody is talking about that catch, or non-catch in this case. And again, if you watch the replay at full time, it's a catch. 100%, 15 steps, or 4 or 5, enough. He had possession, but when you watch it in slow motion, you can actually understand completely why it is not a catch. The ball hit the ground, became dislodged by hitting the ground, even though he was reaching for the pylon. It still came dislodged. It was ruled not a catch. And I don't know why it's ruled... I don't understand this rule. And most people don't. I don't know what they're trying to avoid with this. Like, it should have been ruled a fumble that he just recovered. I don't see the big deal. I just don't get it. The one thing, everyone wants suggestions, everyone's trying to suggest what they think should be called, or what the rule change should be. I honestly don't know exactly how much they can change it, because it's made for every catch. It's not just made for that goal line. The only thing I can think is maybe if you catch, everyone can think this is long-winded, but that's what the rules are. It's a bunch of long-winded rules written by miserable old men. If you catch the ball and you're within 5 yards, let's call it, reasonable length, and you establish possession and then you stretch to try and get to the end zone and don't make it, and the ball comes dislodged, but you have possession towards the end, I think that should be the rule, even if it is in one fluid motion. There's not a perfect solution to this, and this is going to be held under a microscope, but it sucks that that's not a catch. But at the same time, just like last week, Detroit, you didn't lose that game because of that one catch. Dallas, you didn't lose this game because of that one catch. Aaron Rodgers was hurt. You didn't take advantage of that as well as you should have, because you don't have a very good situational defense. Your defense can hold down the fort. You have I don't want to say bend but don't break defense. You have a bend over backwards but don't break defense. And I knew this defense wouldn't get very far. But they gave him a game. You know what, Dallas? Don't hang your head low. People thought you were going 4-12 this year. Thought you were going to have a historically terrible defense. And instead, your defense played better than last season. Still not a great defense. I think they were ranked in the 20s. Very efficient offense, great running attack. Tony Romo silenced a lot of haters this season. You had a good season, and you can build up a lot for next year. Whether DeMarco Murray's back there, whether you get Adrian Peterson, whoever you get. Hang your head high. That offensive line is young. You can still add some pieces. I know Doug Free has got to be around 30, if not over 30. But you've got the core of it is young. You've got a bright future there. So, at the very least, you got another good 2 to 3 years to compete. And that's a lot more than a lot of other teams can say. Because one team that cannot say they have 2 to 3 good years left to complete, the Indianapolis Colts, 24-13 over the Denver Broncos. And it was not that close. Andrew Luck, don't let the stat sheet lie to you. A lot of players are worse than their stats imply. He was better than they implied. And if you watch, he had 2 interceptions. I saw them both. They replayed both of them. That's just what Andrew Luck does. And you can always say, well, how come you excuse him? I don't just excuse him. If you're Brett Favre was my favorite player growing up. He threw a ton of interceptions. He holds the NFL record for most interceptions thrown. He was in the pot. He was getting rushed. He was about to get hit. He just chucked the ball up, trying to make a play. And he basically punted it to the other team twice. It sucks, but field position is important, but he still threw it about 20 yards down the field. So, just pretend I got a reasonably good kick return on that one. It's unfortunate to see Peyton Manning like this. And the news came out that he had a torn quad, or a partially torn, I guess. If he had a torn quad, he couldn't walk on it, but one of the muscles in there was basically sheared, and it sucks to see it happen like that. And you can tell that, legs are important to a quarterback. A lot of people forget that. But that's where most of your power comes from. And it sucks that he performed that poorly. I think he can rebound and still come back next season and be a top 5, 6, 7 quarterback easily. He could even be a number 1 quarterback. He could. We don't know how much this affected him. Only he knows that. So a lot of people are saying he needs to retire. Nobody needs to retire. We are not at liberty to tell people to retire. I don't want to see Peyton Manning go out this way, but at the same time, I don't want to see him go out next season and struggle. But that's his choice. If he thinks next year he can come back and throw 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, then goddamn it, Peyton, come back. The league loves having you around. I love seeing you around. If he thinks he's done and wants to pack it up, you know what? He's got a Super Bowl ring. That's more than Marino can say. That's more than Jim Kelly can say. They're Hall of Famers. So, he's still... I just want to see him back. Maybe it's for selfish reasons. I want to see him get that all-time passing record. That neck fusion, that neck surgery, all 4 of them, really just, that's his record. And it would be a shame if he doesn't actually hold it. But John Fox got canned for this. Another guy, he's a good coach. He led Carolina to their only Super Bowl appearance. There's 2 other opportunities in Atlanta and Chicago, and I think it would be foolish if he didn't get one of those 2 jobs this season. But because of when he got fired, I don't think he will. He'll be a head coach again. He'll get a 3rd opportunity. He better get a 3rd opportunity. He's too good of a coach not to. And even if it's at the college level, he'll get another job somewhere. But John Elway, I'm not going to question anything he does. He knows exactly what he's doing. He got close but no cigar last season. He didn't get as close this season. They got outplayed in their last 2 playoff games. He didn't want to tolerate it anymore. And that's fine. You've got a limited window. Now you have no idea how limited your window is. This team is still... There's going to be some players left. They're going to move some money around and make sure that a good chunk of this team is still together. You're probably going to lose one of the Thomases. Wes Welker's gone. He needs... I know I just said I don't like seeing people call for retirements. Wes Welker needs to retire for his own health. His own health, he needs to go. That's the only time I'll call for retirement, is if I think that you are literally putting your life at risk and you're not going to see 40 if you keep playing. I think Wes Welker needs to retire for his own health. He's not as efficient as a player anymore, and I can't tell if that's because of the injuries or just age, but he needs to retire because he's going to go and get veteran minimum somewhere next season, or like $2 million a year even, at most, to be the 4th-string wide receiver. It's not worth putting yourself through, dude. Just go, walk away. Walk away. Even if you're not a Hall of Famer, you had a very solid NFL career. It's tough for wide receivers to get in lately. Tim Brown's still not in. I don't understand how that is, but Tim Brown is not a Hall of Famer. So if Wes Welker never makes it to the Hall of Fame, that's fine. I don't necessarily think he is. He's definitely not a first ballot guy, but I could see him getting in someday. But you had a very, very good career, and you just need to walk away from it. But he's not going to listen to my advice. So that's fine. But it all hinges on whether Peyton Manning comes back. I think he does. I think he should if he thinks he can go. And if he comes back, that's still a 12-win team, 11 or 12-win team next season, because I still think Kansas City, they'll play tough. San Diego's not going to be as decimated by injuries. That's a real threat. Oakland's still a couple of years away. So I still think they can go 4-2, 5-1 in their own division. And, make a decent run. They play the Norths next year, which I think the AFC North got a little overrated. They have some good teams, but I think they got a little overrated. They get to play Cincinnati, who they lost to this year, but they can probably beat, Cleveland. So you got some winnable games there. So I think Denver is still a contender next season with Peyton Manning. Without him, I don't think so. I think they still have some talent, but they might just self-destruct. There's some teams constructed to self-destruct. I know that when when Drew Brees retires, New Orleans is going to self-destruct, and I think Denver is set up in a similar fashion. Just they had more success. Indianapolis, I still think, is the weakest now of the 4 remaining. I thought they were the 2nd weakest out of the 8 teams this weekend. I thought they were better than Carolina, but not close to the other teams. And they won again. But I will still pick against them. Now, the conference championships. And before I get into my previews and all of this, there is, for all of you watching this on YouTube who haven't just minimized the video or actually looked at it, I know it's just a static image, but the question of the day is posted on there. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. But my question for you is, which potential Super Bowl matchup do you think would be the most interesting, and why? Why do you guys think that would be the best matchup? There's some great storylines here. You got the Colts, who I just discussed, playing the Patriots. And the Colts would be, if the Colts go against the Seahawks, you're talking about two guys from the 2011 draft, the first overall pick and the guy from the third round, meeting in the Super Bowl. Plus, there's that sneaky storyline that no one's really referring to because everyone forgets about him, but Matt Hasselbeck, the longtime Seahawks quarterback, the excellent Seahawks quarterback who led them to their first Super Bowl appearance, even though they lost, he's the backup quarterback for Andrew Luck. So there's that. They can throw that storyline in there too. There's some good storylines there. And if they play the Packers, you're talking about Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the league. I don't think that's even an argument right now. You can maybe make the case for Tom Brady, but I think just on a pure physical talent standpoint, it's Aaron Rodgers, and then he can equal Brady on the passes almost completely. So Andrew Luck is the up-and-comer, potentially the greatest of all time in the making. So two once-in-a-generation talents happen to be playing at the same time. Similar eras. I mean, Aaron Rodgers might be in the league another 10 years. Luck, you figure he's got to get another 13, 14 out of him easily. So that could be an interesting matchup. The Patriots going up against the Packers, we've already seen that once. But that would be, Super Bowl rematch from way back in 97. Or 96 if you refer to it like I do. But the Patriots and Packers, that would be an interesting Super Bowl. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, again, two top quarterbacks. Really, you're talking about 3 out of the top, maybe 4 or 5 quarterbacks in here, and Russell Wilson should be included in that top 5 discussion, but he's not just because of a statistical standpoint and the fact that the team doesn't rely on him as much. But that would make an interesting matchup. But my favorite matchup out of this, and the one that I picked in the last podcast I did, and I'm sticking to it, just to give away who I think is going to win these games. I think what's going to happen, and I would love to see Patriots and Seahawks. And Eric is somewhere cursing in a corner. We had this discussion on Facebook, and he asked me why I don't like good football. I don't want to see a gimpy... I don't want to see a gimpy Aaron Rodgers. I want to see the best Aaron Rodgers. I would love to see Aaron Rodgers in another Super Bowl, but I don't want to see him limping around. And Andrew Luck is really, really great. He's going to be, if he's not already, one of the best quarterback in the league. T.Y. Hilton's really good. Vontae Davis has been a great cornerback, and I couldn't name you a single other player on that team except for Boom Herron because he's got a great first name, and Trent Richardson because of the trade. There's not a lot of talent in Indy. I've been saying this all season. Andrew Luck is exceptional, but nobody else is. But Andrew Luck is that good where he can carry the rest of the team. Same thing Peyton Manning did for all those years. So, but I want to see Andrew Luck in the Super Bowl, but not yet. I want to see a good team around him. And they don't have that yet. So, Patriots-Seahawks, because I think that'll be the best matchup. A great coaching matchup. Belichick and Carroll are two of the best. Pete Carroll was the coach of the Patriots in that 97 Super Bowl and didn't quite get him there. Got fired, went to USC, reestablished himself. And Pete Carroll is very good at scheming. He's a very good schemer on defense. And Belichick loves to study and destroy schemes. So I think it would be a really interesting matchup to see which one can outcoach the other. I think that would be the best part of it. Tom Brady and Russell Wilson couldn't be even more opposite. Brady's had a couple runs the last couple of weeks, which have just been more so like hilarious. Because that guy, I think I outrun Tom Brady. That might be a little exaggerating, but he's not that fast. Russell Wilson is better outside the pocket than inside the pocket. So it would be two completely different teams. But what I think could be happening here, and maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but maybe I'm not. This could be, everyone talked about the Colts taking down Denver as a pass the torch game. I think Patriots-Seahawks should be passing the torch. The Patriots have been the long-standing, almost 15-year, I'll call it a dynasty, because that's sustained dominance over that long period of time. Just the same, I call the Spurs a dynasty in the NBA, because they have been great since 1998. They have been great. They have not missed the playoffs since 98, I believe. I think I checked the other day. They haven't missed the playoffs once. Patriots, a couple times, but both the times the Patriots have missed the playoffs, they were tied for the division lead. They just lost on a tiebreaker. Patriots have been dominant this whole time. The Seahawks look like they could be that team. I mean, they're going to have to move some money around. Russell Wilson's going to get paid, but I think the Seattle Seahawks, we could be talking about this team, maybe not. I mean, salary cap set up to not let this happen. But we could be talking about the Seahawks for another 7-8 years. That would give them a decade run. Would anyone really put that past anyone? I think that could happen. So this could be a pass the torch game from the Seahawks to the Patriots. But that said, I said it before, I say it again, I think the Patriots, I think this is they're looking at this as their last stand. I'm sure maybe not their last stand, but I think they need this victory more than the Seahawks do. Because I think that window is going to close on Brady. I think they've got a couple more years out of him. I think they can get another 2 or 3 out of him after this season. He's playing pretty well. He's not, but I thought the same thing about Peyton Manning. They're not really reliant on moving around. They're just throwing the ball and being smart. And you never know when that could drop off for Brady. It might not have dropped off for Peyton. It might have been the injury, but Peyton's struggles happened before that injury reportedly happened. So, I don't know. I think that would be the best Super Bowl matchup, but honestly, I don't think there's a bad Super Bowl matchup to come out of this. So, I think I'm going to enjoy this conference championship week, and I'm really going to enjoy the Super Bowl no matter who wins. But my picks, I'm picking the Patriots, I'm picking the Seahawks. I picked that in the beginning of the beginning of the postseason. I'm sticking with it because I had no reason not to. New England coming from behind by 14 points twice. Seattle just looking dominant in their one game. I know it was against Carolina, and they haven't really played anybody, but now they get a gimpy Aaron Rodgers. And they've already destroyed Green Bay once. So this will shape up. Whatever the outcomes, this will be a good Super Bowl. But again, I sit here not biased against any of these teams. So the ESPN is pulling a joke on me. So just a quick aside. I'm sitting here with the scores pulled up on ESPN, and they have the generated ad, and it's the NFL shop. And I was looking at Bills jerseys the other days, and right now it's literally showing me a bunch of Tim Tebow and Mark Sanchez jerseys alongside some Bills jerseys. It's like they're telling me that Rex is going to bring one of those two guys back. Which, by the way, Tebow or Sanchez would probably be an upgraded quarterback for us. But anyways, guys, thank you guys for listening. I will be back next week. We're doing 1 a week now. 2 a week just was... I was running out of stuff to talk about. Once a week, I think, especially in the postseason, I think that's enough. And then after the Super Bowl, we're going to drop it down to once every other week because I don't have inside sources or anything. I don't know what you guys expect me to talk about once a week when there's no free agency or anything going on yet. So, but yeah, please answer the question today. Leave it down in the comments. Trust me, I read all of them. If I don't immediately reply, it's just because I got sidetracked with something else. So, let me know what you guys think, what your picks are for the Super Bowl, and which matchup do you think could be the most interesting. Like I said, I sort of laid out the foundation for all 4 of the matchups as to which ones could be the most interesting ones, but let me know. Hopefully, your team is still in it. For 28 fans of 28 teams out there, our teams are no longer in it. And we have to root for somebody else. I've had to root for somebody else for 20 some odd years now? So, I don't know. But let me know what you guys want to see in the Super Bowl. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please subscribe to me on YouTube. Please leave a like for this video, even though it's not really a video. And, like I said, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys want for the Super Bowl. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you guys next time.